I consider myself one of the lucky people to have escaped poverty. Using this first-hand experience, I will share how my family and I ended up in poverty and why it's so hard to escape poverty. Let's get a level understanding of poverty. The World Bank measures poverty using the dollar per day formula. Using this formula, they determine that if a person's income falls below a certain line, then they are classified as living in poverty. Currently, over 648 million people are living in extreme poverty, which means that they are living on less than $2.15 per day. But the challenge is, by using this formula, it then becomes easy to miss the people who are considered to be the working poor. Those are people who are working, earning an income, and are living paycheck to paycheck. Because living paycheck to paycheck can occur on all levels of income, which then means that a larger percentage of the Earth's population should be considered to be poor, even if they have a job. If you are currently living paycheck to paycheck, I've included a link in the description below. This is a video that I created with actionable steps to help you to stop living paycheck to paycheck. Feel free to watch that video once you are done watching this one. How do people end up in poverty? It's often very difficult to pinpoint a single thing and say that this is the thing that caused poverty in a person's life. Because what defines poverty isn't just the fact that the person's bank account is overdrawn. No, it's much more complex than that. There's generational poverty. That's when a family has lived in poverty for 2 or more generations. This means yourself and your parents been living in poverty, or another way to look at it, your parents and your grandparents living in poverty. Then there's situational poverty. This is when a person or a family's income is drastically reduced due to a change in their life. This is something like being jobless, having death in the family, or being divorced. Simply put, life happens and then you end up in poverty, which is unfortunately how my family ended up in poverty. I was born into a 2-income family with my mom and dad both working. So you could say that we were okay. Then suddenly things changed when I was about 13 turning 14. Unfortunately, my father passed away, leaving my mother with 2 teenage kids to raise by herself. Then gradually things started changing. From being above water to then start living paycheck to paycheck, and then being in debt, and finally struggling to make ends meet. And just like that, life happened, and my small family of 3 ended up in poverty. Please comment down below with the blue heart to show support to those who are still living in poverty. If unfortunately you experienced a life-changing event that meant that you ended up in poverty, please share by commenting down below. This will help raise awareness that living in poverty is not a lack of character. It's in fact a lack of cash flow, and help reduce the stigma and stereotypes surrounding poverty. What makes it hard to escape poverty? Apart from the ways that people end up in poverty that I've just mentioned, there are poverty traps that then make it difficult for people to escape poverty. A poverty trap is created when an economic system requires a significant amount of capital to escape poverty. There are many underlying factors that contribute to poverty traps. I have grouped these factors into 3 main categories. These categories are finance and capital related, then you have governance related, then finally you have ecological factors. The underlying factors related to finance and capital include having limited access to credit, the capital markets, and the flight of capital, which means that investors no longer want to invest. Instead, they are fleeing and they would rather invest in other opportunities. Whereas factors related to governance include corruption, the lack of healthcare, the lack of schools and quality education, and also having the lack of infrastructure, and in worst cases, having war in your country. Lastly, ecological factors link mainly to the environment. These are the degradation of the environment, and having ecological diseases such as Ebola or malaria or any other ecological disease. This list is not exhaustive, but rather paints a picture of the complex factors that lead to poverty traps that make it difficult for people to escape poverty. If you have found any of the information that I've shared so far in the video to be valuable to you, please like the video so that more people can see this video. Also, please subscribe to my channel by clicking on the link down below. This is free and will definitely help others to find the content easier. Each of the factors that I mentioned happen because of different circumstances, but they all have one thing in common. Yes, it's true that there are many different solutions that we could throw at poverty, such as better healthcare, better education, proper infrastructure, and public facilities. However, all of these solutions also have one thing in common. And if you take a closer look, it's also the one thing that poor people don't have: money. Yes, money. The lack of money creates a self-reinforcing cycle of poverty. Let's take an example. When someone cannot get quality education or has to drop out of school because of a complex reason, this makes it difficult for the person to acquire the knowledge and skills in order for them to get a high-paying job. Now the person remains trapped in low-skilled, low-paying jobs, and then will find it difficult to access funding or to get a line of credit on favorable terms. This makes it hard for them to get money that they need to pull themselves out of poverty, and thus creating the self-reinforcing cycle of poverty. It doesn't matter how strong your character is, the lack of money still makes it very difficult for people to escape poverty. Hearing this, you might be wondering, well, if it's so complex and difficult for people to escape poverty, how did you manage to do it? Watch this video next in order to hear my personal story of how I ended up escaping poverty, as I hope that this will help others do the same. I've also linked the video in the description below to make it easy for you to find. I'll see you on the next video.